Короче, поехали дальше. Простите, что так вышло. Просто мама зашла, не самый удобный момент. Так бывает. Ну, со всеми бывает. Это же вырезать не буду. Все же знают. Житейское. М.
I wondered that myself. It's not as if she valued me highly. I think she just didn't want to give anything to the Grey Wardens, is all. The Chantry didn't lose much. And I think I can do more fighting the Blight anyhow, rather than sitting in a temple somewhere.
Ну,
I'll always be
справедливо.
thankful to Duncan for recruiting me. If it hadn't been for him, you know, I would never... I wouldn't have. He was a good man who didn't deserve his fate. That much I'm sure of. Come on, let's go.
М? 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 Ну, плюсы небольшие есть, как бы. Вроде немного знаем. Извините, что сворачиваюсь. Просто боюсь, что запись не идет. Звук-то есть? Звук есть, все. Давайте с Лилианой попиздим.
Yes. Well, here I am. Quiet. It was a life suited for contemplation. In the cloister, away from the fuss and the flurry of the cities, I found peace. And in that stillness, I could hear the Maker. But it was not perfect. Some of my chantry fellows were condescending. That is the nature of religious folk, I suppose.
А, блядь.
When I talked about my beliefs, that the Maker reveals himself in the beauty of his world, they treated me with disdain. They want to believe that he's gone, so that when he turns his gaze on them, it means they are special, chosen. He cannot possibly have love for all, the sick and the weary, the beggars and the fools. Yes, I know this is what the Chantry teaches. It is not easy for me either to reconcile how I feel with what I am told. Maybe I am wrong. But it is the Maker's place to decide if I am worthy, not men.
Ну, направо.
Not the Chantry. But there is work to be done. And I have talked
Вы
to
заебали.
Allister.
Да я со всеми хочу дружить. Я буду всех
What do you
доебывать.
need?
Теперь снова Алистера.
Ask away.
Кто умеет
Essentially,
храмовники?
they're trained to fight. The Chantry,
Короче,
on the other
храмовники
hand,
хуярят
are
против магов, да.
forced to hunt mages. Perhaps the Chantry keeps a close rein on its Templars. We are given, and since the Chantry controls the lyrium trade with the dwarves. Thankfully, no. You don't need lyrium in order to learn the Templar talents. Lyrium just makes the Chantry usually doesn't let their Templars get away either. So
Охуеть. Храмовников подсаживают специально на лириум. Лириум это и есть магическая вот это... Как зелье маны, в общем.
ask away.
Развивает магические способности.
I suppose I could. When the Grand Cleric let Duncan recruit me, she made me swear never to reveal Templar secret. Ask me later, perhaps. Maybe I'll...
Алистер
What do you
хорош.
need? Ask away. Did I say that? I meant that dogs raised me. Giant soaring dogs from the Anderfells. A whole pack of them.
Отлично.
Well, they were flying dogs, you see. Surprisingly strict parents, without Andrastians to boot. Oh, there you go, listening to me again. You'd think you'd have gotten past that. Let's see, how do I explain this?
О, бастард.
And before you make any... My mother was a serving girl in Redcliffe Castle who died when I was very young. Arleman wasn't my father, but he took me in anyhow and put a roof over my head. He was good to me, and he didn't have to be. I respect the man, and I don't blame him anymore for sending me off to the Chantry once I was old enough. I was young and resentful and not very pious. Of course I blamed him. I remember screaming. Arleman eventually married a young woman from Orlais. which caused all sorts of problems between him and the king because it was so soon after the war.
Ну, Ламону любил эту женщину, но к любви нихуя не покорна, как говорит. Ну, похуй, если любишь, то чё нет.
They weren't true, but of course they existed. The Isle didn't care, but she did. So off I was packed to the nearest monastery at age 10, just as well. The Arlessa made sure the castle wasn't a home to me by that point.
Забираю свои слова, вот она шлюхой была.
Maybe. She felt threatened by my presence, I can see that. I remember I had an amulet with Andraste's holy symbol on it. The only thing I had of my mother's. I was so
грустно.
being sent away, I tore it off and threw it at the wall and it shattered. Stupid, stupid thing to do. The Isle came by the monastery a few times to see how I was, but I was stubborn. And raised my dogs. Or I may as well have been, the way I acted. But maybe all young bastards act like that. I don't know. All I know is that the Isle is a good man and well loved by the people. Anyway, that's really...
О, Алистер одобряет.
Ask away.
Короче, пиздите, все, мы тут,
Have you seen the uniform? It's not only stylish, but well made. That's just in public. In private, we have these yellow and purple tunics, right? Much more comfortable, and you don't break the beds when you jump on them during a pillow fight. I'd use my shield if I could, but I...
Бля, как же он охуенно пиздит.
It's really quite boring. Then let's just get back to what we...
Алистер заебался. -1, блядь, ответил не так. Все, перезагружаемся, сейвскам. Да ладно, похуй, ребят. -1 так -1. Блядь, ну с ним запиздели, с Лилианой теперь снова. День пиздежа, день пиздежа.
Here I am. I knew this would come up sooner or later. In it, there was an impenetrable darkness. It was so dense, so real. And there was a noise, a terrible, ungodly noise. I stood on a peak and watched as the darkness... I fell. And the darkness drew me in. When I woke, I went to the Chantry's gardens, as I always do. Everyone knew that bush was dead. It was grey and twisted and gnarled. It was as though the Maker stretched out his hand to say, even in the midst of this darkness, there is hope and beauty. Have faith. I suppose you will never understand. I know what I know.
Блядь.
Yes?
А как надо было...
Well, here I am. What is meant by someone like me?
Лицемерно.
Did you think I was always a cloistered sister? The Chantry provides succor and safe harbor to all who seek it. I chose to stay.
Кто такая келейница?
From our belief in the Maker, in Andraste and the chant, but other than that, I was a traveling minstrel in my way. Tales and songs were my life. I performed skill in battle.
Смотри, избегает. Лян не одобряет. Да что я, блядь?
Yes. Well, here I am. Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Which one? I have heard a little about how the elves, when Andraste began her exalted march, the great elven leader, Shatan, born in captivity. Shatan was killed when Andraste was betrayed, but the elves continued. The elves claimed the dales in the south and settled there. The elves lived in the dales for centuries. This angered the Chantry, and the hostility between the two factions. The Chantry declared during the exalted march of the dead. Some of the elves bitterly accepted their fate, but others, still fiercely proud of...
Короче, тут рассказывают про то, как разделились долийцы. Короче, церковь их вытесняла, судя по всему, из того, что говорит Лилиана. Притесняла долийских эльфов, и, блядь, какие-то прогнулись и стали жить в городах, как в трущобах ебучих, как бомжи. А другие просто живут с кайфом в долине своей.
The Maker had long seen beauty, grace, and wisdom enraptured, but Andraste had an earthly husband, and would not. So earnest was her plea that the Maker was, and this is why Andraste began her exalted march. Andraste brought the Imperium to its knees, and when Andraste
блядь, короче, ясно. Это было.
Alas, It was the frailties of men.
Пидорасы.
Her earthly
Как...
husband, Mafarath, a chieftain of the Alamari tribes himself.
Нихуя себе.
She was also revered as the Maker's betrothed. And Mafarath, out of
Короче, Меферат
Mafarath made
нихуя
with the Archon Hyserian
отправил в другую страну, блядь, свою...
Rusty was burnt at the stake.
Пиздец, ее сожгли.
Capital of Tevinter. I have thought on this too. This question has come to me many times, and I have no answer. We will never know for sure.
О, Лилиана одобряет.
Well,
Че еще с тобой?
here I am.
А, ну похуй. Короче, запизделись. Ты кто? Кто ты, блядь? Кто ты?
You're a hard man to find. Where are my manners? The name is Levy Dryden. Did Duncan ever mention me? Levy of the coins, Levy the trader.
А,
Really? He never told you of old Levy? We've known each other for years.
Mhm.
But here I am carrying on while you... But you see, Duncan promised that together we'd look into something. But poor Duncan's... Well, no more. A tragedy it is at that.
давай.
But I know he would want his work carried on. My family, well, past a bit. My great-great-grandmother, Sophia Dryden, was the last warden commander of Ferelden back when the wardens were... So King Orland banished the wardens, and he took House Dryden's land. Duncan wanted to reclaim the old Grey Warden base. Soldiers... Nobody's been to Soldiers' Peak since the Grey Wardens were banished. They say it's haunted, and it's certainly dangerous. Will you help? 1,000... I'll mark down the location on your map.
Ок. Короче, тип. Торговец, блядь. И съебался. Вот сука. Свалил.
It's good to see you, my timely rescuer. Bodon Feddick at your service once again. I saw your camp and remember the kind offer that you made the last time we met. And is there anywhere... I'm perfectly willing to offer you a fine discount for the inconvenience of our presence. How does that... I'm sure you'll be pleased with...
Нихуя себе, еще и торговец. Шлем испытаний. Вау, тяжелый шлем. Перчатки угольники. Крученый ошейник. Переносной бастион, красная сталь. 36 единиц силы. Это щит такой. Имперские ногозаплетатели. Вместо 52, 10 шансов вернуться от атаки. Туфли барда. Блять, как он дорого все продает. Давай, короче, эту всю хуйню ему отдадим. Я не думаю, что мы с этим... Пока с броней вряд ли мы разберемся. Что у него тут? Нихуя. 87. Дороговато, старина. Плюс 2 к силе воли. Далийская подвеска. 10 к устойчивости силам природы. Восстановление выносливости в бою. Ремень далийского охотника. Тема. Увеличивает доход. От чего? Уголек. 5 к урону от огня, плюс 5 к урону от холода. Возьмем для Мориган. Реагент. Склянки сюда. Да давай. Чё нет-то? Давай потратим на склянки. У меня дохуя всего еще. Тоже кинжал порождения тьмы. Бля, это бы по-хорошему это все распределить по всем. 5 пробивания у брони. Хранитель клятвы. Ну, у меня 12 и 10. Блять, по-хорошему... Пока броню... Ладно, похуй, пока так. Камни, вся хуйня, все. Ладно. Остальное у него все равно. Вот, ну, припарки возьмем, конечно. Типа схуяли. Книга о мифическом развитии. Блять, 22 монеты, ты чё, совсем охуел? Книга о физическом развитии. Бля, книги крутые. Рюкзак, похуй на рюкзак. Сгнившая луковица, подарок. Кусок угля, подарок. Продуманный подарок. Сахарный торт, бля. Продуманный подарок. Пояс верности. Палка кошатницы. Нихуя. Медь бабочка. За 0. Он это за 0 продает. За 0, ребята. А чё это? Кукла Алистера. Подбородная палка. Кукла-марионетка. Веревочные тоже возьмем. Бля, у меня Подожди, так что за 0? Конус, песня света, полная версия. Королей Блять. Я понял. Все, куда дарить? Здорово. Здорово, старик. Как дарить подарки? Блять, я все подарками захуячу. Сахарный торт. А как? Здорово, старина.
What do you need? Ask away.
А как? А как дарить мне подарки? Сменить отряд есть. Да ладно. Подожди. Как мне дарить подарки?
Well, here I am.
А как инвентарь переполнен? Да ладно, похуй. Как подарки? Я знаю, что он переполнен. Как подарки дарить? Подарки можно продавать или дарить? Изучить. А как? Бля, сахарный торт, я хочу кому-нибудь Алистеру подарить. Пес! Пес, как? Я могу тебе подарить что-нибудь? Приласкать, конечно. Блять. Что ж такое? Что ж я должен сделать? Ладно. Сэндл.
Hello. The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments. One of those
О, нифига себе.
actually called him an
Бля, ну это точно эти типы были. Руна ученика, руна электричества, 2 руна от электричества. Давай. Чё бы нет. Мориган, чё стоишь? Как, блять, ребята, это важно, это важно, это важно. Ладно, это между записями разберемся.
What do you wish of me? If you must. I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches, saying that we assume the forms of creatures.
Да нахуй вам это надо делать?
When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured. A most... So I assume... My mother has walked the wilds far longer than I. Who am I to suggest?
Хорошо.
Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know? Anyone with sufficient will, but the act of transformation... If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself,
Понял.
sadly, you must remain disappointed. The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it
А людей не
does,
изучишь, типа.
as it does. In time, this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing. So there were nights when the wilds called to me. 'Tis true.
И ты бегала паучком.
The world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it but my life is as a human. I am under no
Неплохо.
illusions to the contrary. They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like
Неплохо.
another of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals.
Бля, интересно.
No, 'tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, past. The zealots of the chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. But as luck have it, some still exist. My mother is such a one. Not all apostates use the forbidden blood arts. Maleficarum do, but to condemn all who do not fall under the circle's thrall for the sake of what might be is a dangerous path to walk. There are those who look on the word of
На нихуя, да.
as meaning freedom. Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
Может придать шесты защекотать.
I wouldn't advise it. But enough of such talk.
Обиделась? Не одобряет, она не против того, чтобы я ее
What do you wish?
весел на столб и защекотал.
If you must.
Подожди, может быть вот это?
What do you wish? We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any. I am here because Flemeth commanded me to aid you. Why? Do you wish me to leave? I can do so if you prefer. If I wanted to leave, then I would go. I remain.
Блять, 10!
What do you wish of me? We are in camp, so why? Do you wish me to leave? Then I assume.
Опять что ли? Минус 10? Минус 20 уже? Минус 17.
What do you
Охуеть.
If you must. Why do you ask me such questions? I do not probe you for pointless information, do I? Beg pardon then while I jump for joy. What is it you asked if I grew up in the... For many years it was simply Flemeth and I. The wild... In time I grew curious. I left the wilds to explore what lay beyond, never for long. Brief forays into a... I am no primitive, painted in blood and unable... For all that I had been taught, however, I was unfamiliar with so much. So confident and bold was I, yet there was much that Flemeth could never have prepared me. Equal parts daring and foolhardy, perhaps. Only once was I accused of being a witch of the wilds. He pointed and gasped and began shouting in his strange language, and most assumed he was casting some curse upon me. I acted the terrified. Men are always willing to believe two things. I played the weakling and battered my eyelashes. The point being that I was able to move through human lands. Not that I did not have trouble. There are things about human society which have always puzzled me, such as the touching. Why all the touching? Do not speak to me. There were many nuances that Flemeth could never tell me of. When to look into another's eyes. I still do not understand it all, truth be told, but then I gave up long ago any hope of doing so. When I returned to the wilds last, I swore to Flemeth that I had no intention of leaving again. Yes. Well, let's get on with it.
Ну хоть, блядь, пиздец. А что ж я сказал ей что-то, блядь, она такая обиделась на меня, пиздец, что обижаешься?
If you must.
Подожди, а есть?
Yes. At times, perhaps. A world full of people and buildings and things was all very foreign to me. If I wished companionship, I ran with the wolves and flew with... Don't be foolish. I recall the first time I crept beyond the edge of the wild. I happened upon a noblewoman by her carriage, adorned in sparkling garments, the likes of which I had never...
Ну еще бы, я бы тоже ослепился.
I snuck up behind her and stole a hand mirror from the carriage. It was encrusted in gold and crystalline gemstones, and I hugged it to my chest with delight as Flemeth was furious with me. I was a child and had to teach me a lesson. Flemeth took the mirror and smashed it upon the ground. I was... And a foolish one. Beauty and love are... Without those lessons I would not be here today, as difficult as they might have been. Sorry? To return to your original question, perhaps I find myself at times wondering what might have become of the girl with the beautiful golden...
Опять, блядь. Короче, хуй ты поговоришь с Морриган, не задев ее чувства. Опять, блядь, все не так. Опять какие-то неправильные диалоги.
If you must. You are very cute to ask so many questions. Really? Perhaps we should be wrapped in ribbons and adorned with flowers.
Да.
My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes, by Templar fools like Flemeth made a bit of a game of it, in fact. The Templars would come again, and she would look at me and smile and say that the fun was to begin once more. I am unsure. I was too young to understand, and Flemeth would warn them once, and then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait, a little girl to scream and run and lure the Templars deeper into the wilds. Sometimes, eventually. Thankfully, the wilds is a vast place. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum. Perhaps they did. Still, I do not... The Chantry sees any mages not leashed to the circle of magi as apostates. It may even be true. Still, those of us who prefer freedom see no reason to submit. Oh, I hope you are not simply being agreeable. Enough of this talk.
Блять, а как дарить подарки? Инвентарь переполнен, лагерь отряда. Подарки. Как дарить? А, подожди, вот.
Is that for me?
Все, старина, да? Да, конечно.
Wow. I'm. Wow.
Ура, он доволен!
I am grateful. 'Tis thoughtful indeed. A fine gift. You have my thanks. Interesting. Interesting.
Why, thank you so much. Why, thank you so much.
I could get used to this, you know.
And you give this to me, why?
What do you need? Ask away.
Yes? Well, here I am.
Короче, я перезагрузился. Да, я, блядь, ну так подарки меня зацепили. Бля, как...
The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments. One of those tranquil fellas actually called him a... What?
Давай там пока заколдуем еще раз. Хранитель клятвы, это мой, да? Меч на 8,40. Подожди, нихуя. Плоский меч. А, только его, походу. Только этот меч я пока и могу, да? Зачарить.
And there you have it.
Только хранитель клятвы имеет борозду. Ладно, наплевать. Бля, ну пойдем еще раз с Морриган перетрем, ребят. Да мне в кайф. Я вспомнил, как это делать. Короче, да. Так.
I gain nothing. If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself, sad. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusion. The zealots of the Chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. I am surprised you think so. Still, indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an I would... But enough of such... What do you wish of me?
Ребят, я хочу устроить секс-шпекс. Сейчас мы ей надарим.
If you must. Why do you ask me such questions? I do not probe you for pointless information, do I? Beg pardon there. What is... In time, I grew curious. I left the wild. Would you not do the same? Your world. I was unfamiliar with so much. He pointed and gasped. Not that I did not have trouble. There are things about human... I still do not understand it.
Блять, можно... Ну, как бы с одной стороны я понимаю. Ага.
A world full of people. I snuck up behind her and stopped. To teach me a lesson, Flemeth took the mirror and smashed it. And without those lessons, I would not be here today. As difficult as... Do I not? I am still an apostate maid. To return to your original question, perhaps I find myself at times...
Так.
Yes.
Симулятор свиданий.
We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any.
Поцеловать ее.
Discuss away. Yes? We are in camp, so 'tis... What's this? 'Tis a rather odd discussion you seem to desire. leaning in so
Не,
close.
не понравится.
Not unless you stop.
Опа. Опа, 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 опа. Да! Yeah! О, сюда! Опа! Конечно, она одобряет. И-хи-хи. Ебать, музыка зарядила. Плюс секс выходит или чё? Будет? Ой, как хорошо. Ай-яй-яй, ай-яй-яй, как хорошо. Старина, с днем рождения тебя.
Very
С
nice.
днем рождения тебя. С днем рождения тебя. С днем рождения тебя. Еще я ей подарил вот эту штуку. Лесная статуэтка. Там ей что-то очень понравилось. Что ж ей понравилось? Блять, ей что-то на плюс 50 закинул.
Interesting.
Это ладно. Почему Лилиане нельзя кинуть куклу... Не-не-не, вон там была... Песня Света. Алистеру можно? Нет, Алистеру тоже нельзя. Лови, старина, да, тебе с кайфом. А, кукла Алистера ей понравилась, походу.
I am grateful. It is thoughtful indeed.
Чё теперь? Используй, Морриган может веселиться, нанося оскорбление кукле Алистера. Разъебка. Хорошо, бомба. Песня Света. А чё там? Плюс 100 тепло, нахуй. Алистер, как дела? На.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
Ну-ка, подожди. Ага. Так. Ну, старина теперь этот, потерпи тогда. Ух, блядь, не зря я покупал хуйни. А, я могу и настраивать их сейчас, блядь. Только дошло до меня. Тогда мы сейчас и оружие продадим. Ненужное. Мне хочется, чтобы ты ходила с арбалетом, подруга. Да тебе шлема не оставил. Вот я дурак. Хочу, чтобы ты ходила с арбалетом. И у тебя была варварская булава, нихуя себе. Пусть будет варварская булава. Кинжал порождения тьмы. Заколдованный кинжал. Во. Гоняй так. Морриган там булава против порождения тьмы. И огненные стрелы держи в первый. Забирай все. А, подожди, стрелы, да. Болты нужны. Ну похуй, ладно, пусть так будет пока. А, где Морриган еще? Все, блять, с Морриган плюс 100. Охуеть. Так, Лилиана. Ну мы со всеми дружим, естественно. Подарки скупить, это вообще про нас. А давай полностью с Алистером подружимся. Ау.
Very nice.
Все.
Why, thank you so much.
Пожалуйста.
Why, thank you so much.
Все. Разъебка. Новая способность вдохновения, небольшой бонус к магии. Новая способность вдохновения, небольшой бонус к магии. Новая способность вдохновения, небольшой бонус к телосложению. Блять! Подружился со всеми. Средний бонус к телосложению. Тема. Блять. Все получат. А вы чё? Да, ребят, я просто вам тортики подарил. Бля, легендарно. Полученный навык. Навыки Алистер. Оу. Наш спутник получает огромный бонус к телосложению. Нихуя себе. Морриган тоже получает. Лилиана пока нихуя не получает. Все?
Something you need? I'm sure either my boy or I can.
Покажи свои товары, пожалуйста. Блять. Со всеми подружился. Да давай вот это все. Нахуй, в принципе, это все. Здесь урон электричества. Это что такое? Ладно. А еще есть подарки? Учебник храмовника. Руководство странника. А что за странник? Несокрушимый голубь. Рюкзак. А что за, подожди, одержимые от А до Я? Книга рассказывает, что и как делают ководство странника. Кто такой странник? Секунду. Это должно быть в прокачке. Бля, ребята, простите, да, хуйней занимаюсь. Понимаю. Храмовник. Оборотень. Разбойник Бард. А что же... У меня там специализации есть тоже. Если открыть меня... Как мне, меня открыть? Записи персонажей. Нет, не это. Там... Когда открываешь, там можно специализацию посмотреть. Ладно, похуй. Не, подожди. Блять,
Something you need?
это я могу типа стать храмовником у него сразу? Ладно, похуй. Пояс верности. Меч-бабочка. Полная генеалогия королей. Амулет воспоминаний. Амулет можно продавать... Простые узоры по внешней кромке медальона стерлись и стали гладкими, а стекло покрылось темной платиной. Бля, это вообще нормально? Лютня вот. Палка. Щит короля. Антивианский бренди. Меч-бабочка. Пояс верности. Кусок угля. Продуманный подарок. Вот. Давай еще там 10 штук купим. Бля, рюкзак бы. Ладно, похуй. Пока так тогда. Не, давай еще, короче, похуй. Потом найдем деньги на рюкзак. Сейчас типа закорешимся со всеми. Вообще по-лютому. То есть так легко можно закорешиться со всеми.
Why, thank you so much.
Полная...
No, that won't work. No, that won't work.
Угу.
Why, thank you so much. Why, thank you so much. Why, thank you so much. Why, thank you so much.
Все. Вдохновение, небольшой бонус к хитрости. Так, и чё? Ну все. Опа.
So you shall come to my tent? But whatever shall we do in that tiny little space together while we wait for it to warm? Good. Then let us waste no more time.
Oh my. Плюс секс. О, все сюда. Алистер и Лена смотрят на это и такие, ок.
I see the stories they tell of Grey Warden endurance are not exaggerated. Indeed there are. The unanswered question, of course, is whether the endurance exists because of the taint within you, or because the Grey Wardens are by nature so very healthy. I enjoy the thought that 'tis a little of both. Natural prowess, driven by a darker side. That is entirely up to you. Simply know that I have no designs on your independence. I wish only to do what I desire, and if that coincides with what you desire, then so be it. And should you decide not to continue our misadventure, then so be it. Very simple, is it not? Oh, now you ruin the mood by speaking profanities. Silly man. Come then, let us be off before the others begin to stare.
Вдохновение. Ведьма без ума. Плюс секс. Ебать подарков надарил. А, Алистер что скажет? Подожди, теперь еще интереснее стало.
I have something for you. I mean that I have a gift for you.
О,
Here's a
спасибо.
ring. Now, before you get any foolish notions, let me explain.
Окей.
Flemeth once gave me the ring because it allowed her to find me no matter where I went, in case I was ever captured by hunters. I disabled its power as soon as we left the wilds. Recently, however, I thought to change it. Now, I will be able to find whoever wears it. It is not given out of sentimentality. I believe you are too important to risk. If you were captured, this ring would allow the rest of us to find you quickly. You are welcome. Perhaps it will be useful.
Это полученное. Ну, надо брать. Чё там, +2 к силе воли? Да куда?
So, full of questions, are you? I assume you were actually asking whether Flemeth herself...
Бля, короче, день диалогов, ребят. Ну, типа, можете скипать, если кому-то бои важны или все такое. Но тут напарники, все дела.
It is not inconceivable that she could capture a chastened man, or perhaps change to a more attractive form to attract him willingly. I find it more difficult to imagine her with child. It seems likely, does it not? In an animal form, I do know the tales of Flemeth having many daughters, even though I have never met another. And Flemeth has always treated me as her blood. What an odd thing to say! Flemeth taught me everything I needed to learn. How to survive, the meaning of power, the truth of men. If other mothers do not teach these things, you suppose it... Take yourself. You do not honestly desire such things from me, do you? 'Tis better to be free. There. I tire of this discussion.
Ок. Продуманный подарок. Теперь что Алистер говорит? Типа, все, мы кореша, старина. Здорово.
Something on your mind? Of course. Never what? Had a good pair of shoes?
Плюс секса не было.
Oh, so that's what we're talking about. Well, if you really want to... And apparently you have... I myself never had the pleasure. Not that I haven't thought about it, of course. But, you know... Well, living in the Chantry is... It's not exactly a life for rambunctious boys. They raised me to be a gentleman. That's not so bad. No, enough. I don't... Something on your mind? Of course.
Что меняется?
You mean other than becoming a Grey Warden? You know, I asked Duncan this too, and all I got was, you'll see. Oh, it's not that Duncan wants to keep it a secret, it's just that the first change I noticed was an increase in appetite. I slurped down every dinner.
Нихуя себе.
My last.
Короче, больше хаваешь.
All covered in gravy. When I'd look up, the other Grey Wardens would stare. More like an initiation. Oh, and then there were the nightmares. And when we sleep, it's even worse. You learn to block it out after a while. Some people never have much trouble, but that's rare. Everyone ends up the same, though. Once you reach a certain age, the real...
Короче, когда Серый Страж доходит до сильного возраста, он идет в место спавна этих ебучих порождений тьмы, и там идет драться до конца, потому что они недолгую жизнь проживают, Серые Стражи. 30 лет жизни.
Ultimately, your body won't be able to take it. When the time comes, most Grey Wardens go... We're all going to die. And you wondered why we kept the joining a secret from the new recruits. There you have it. You know, Duncan... He started having the nightmares. I guess he got what he wanted. I just wish it had been something worthy of him. I know.
Все.
Something on your mind? Of course. I didn't know them for very long. They were quite a group. We also laughed more than you'd think. There was this one time... Well, there was one when I first joined. A dwarf named Carrick.
Пиздец, какой ужас.
Carrick said that he never wanted to go back. There was one Grey Warden who came all the way from the Andes.
Григор.
And the man could drink.
Нифига.
He drank all the time, but he never got drunk. Finally, we all made a pool to see just how... Sometimes. We were kin of a sort. All of us... Anyhow,
Реально.
we did find out.
Лучше веселиться, чем, блядь, быть угрюмым после того, как ты увидел, как твои товарищи умерли.
He was still. I'm told that Duncan walked in later on and saw us all passed out from one end of the hall to the other, and Gregor still walking. Duncan laughed until he nearly. Yes, It just struck me that I have nothing to remember Duncan by. Nothing at all. There's no body, not even a token of his that I could. I just would have liked something of. Well, there's no use in moaning.
Ну все, что я могу сказать? Блядь, со всеми подружился. Дружелюбная серия.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind? My mother was from Denerim, and I consider myself a Ferelden. When Orlais was defeated and the common folk began to resent, I was born in Orlais and did not set foot in Ferelden till much later. Mother was always telling me stories of her home. Mother died when I was very young.
Грустно.
She was quite old then, and she had me study music and dance to entertain her. It is unfair that I have... She was an elderly lady, very refined and proper. Cecilia was also kind. My mother was unmarried, and with child... Strangely, the only thing I really remember of mother was her scent.
Нифига себе.
Small white Ferelden wildflowers with a sweet but enough of...
Блять, все время обрывают.
Yes? What's on your mind? I miss Valraillot. Unlike other cities where the people are the lifeblood and the character, Valraillot was... There was always music in Valraillot, streaming from the... And always, floating above that all, the chant, coming from the Grand Cathedral. Yes, I'm sure it is. But, of course, there are good things and bad things about Orlais, like anywhere. And you will laugh at this, but I miss the fine things I had in Orlais. Dresses, fine dresses and furs. Orlais is very fashionable, almost ridiculously so. But the shoes, living with those ridiculous trends. Well, there. When I left Orlais, the fashion was shoes with delicate tapered heels
Нифига себе
and
крутые.
buttons in the front. I had my eye on a pair my shoemaker was working on. The shoes made in Orlais were exquisite. Not at all like this clunky fur. Thank you. It's kind of... They're sturdy shoes, but some... Oh, I could talk about shoes all day.
Блять.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind? Where did you hear this? And you believe... Not all minstrels are spies. Most are just singers and storytellers. Bards are minstrels and more. Spies, as you... Many bards work alone or in small groups, doing the bidding of a patron who pays for their services. If there is an organ... What do you think? They infiltrate, steal, sometimes...
Охуевшие барды.
There is much rivalry among... But they cannot do this open. In secret, they plot and scheme to destroy each other. It is a game completely meaningless. I have revealed too much, it seems. But it doesn't matter what I used to be. It is the past. My skills served me well. I found myself in... I like to see the... Something I can help with?
Я бы хотел поговорить с тобой. Можешь сделать?
I don't think... Let's just go over there, away from the others. For safety.
А? Зачем? Почему? Нахуя? Я не хотел! Нет! Какая нахуй специализация? Блять! Чё? Доступна новая специализация. Но я же ее не принял еще. Охуеть, Барт. Ладно, хуй с ним, все. Ладно, давайте на этом закончим серию. Блять, со всеми закорешился в этой серии. С Морриган пожахались. Неплохо, я считаю. Так что, ну неплохо, неплохо. Чё, теперь можно лечь спать или чё? Или я могу двигаться дальше? Ну, Морриган, конечно, хороша, да. Ясно, почему ее все убирают. Блять, кайфы то, что теперь и у персонажей тоже есть вот эти навыки особые. Кстати, по-моему, во втором тоже Dragon Age такое есть. Огромный бонус хитрости. Охуенно. Все, ладно, давайте сохранимся. На этом пока закончим. Спасибо, что посмотрели. До скорого.